If I'd known that letting Jamie crash at my place would turn my world upside down, I might have. No, I definitely would have still let him in. Because the truth is, something in me had been waiting for a moment like this, without even knowing it. It started with a message. Yo, my lease ends Saturday. Can I crash on your couch a few nights till I find a new spot? That's Jamie. Direct. Casual. Always landing somewhere between chaos and charm. We'd known each other since college. He was the guy who'd borrow your charger and end up staying to debate movies at 3 a.m. somehow. 5 years later, we were still orbiting each other. Friends. Close, but never close enough to say the things that sometimes curled just behind my teeth. I told him yes. Of course I did. He showed up with a duffel bag, 2 energy drinks, and that stupid crooked grin. Same Jamie, shoulder-length curls tied back, hoodie sleeves shoved to the elbows, always smelling faintly of mint gum and whatever cologne he borrowed off someone else. We did the usual, takeout, couch banter, late-night music. It was like nothing had changed. Except something had. Maybe it was the way his eyes lingered a half-second longer when I handed him his plate. Or how he stretched out on the couch like he already belonged. Or maybe it was just me, watching him in the golden kitchen light, barefoot and laughing at some dumb joke I made about the microwave, and realizing my stomach did that annoying twist again. I told myself it was nothing. Familiarity. Comfort. Nostalgia. But that didn't explain why I suddenly became hyper-aware of every moment. Every brush of his arm. Every time he stood too close behind me in the kitchen, just long enough for my brain to short-circuit. By the third night, I noticed I was folding his laundry without being asked. That I refilled the cereal he liked. That I kept replaying old memories of us, shared beers on rooftops, inside jokes no one else understood, that one summer night when we fell asleep on opposite ends of the same hammock and woke up tangled but never spoke of it again. He crashed at my place. That was all. But something was shifting. I could feel it in the quiet moments, between the music fading and the lights going out. In the way his eyes would find mine and linger, then look away, too quickly. And I'd find myself wondering, what if he doesn't look away next time? Jamie and I had always been the kind of friends who never needed to say the obvious. Our connection lived in the spaces between words, shared looks, unfinished thoughts, inside jokes no one else ever caught. We met during sophomore year at a busted poetry open mic. I was forced on stage by a friend who bailed mid-sign-up. Jamie heckled me halfway through a line about winter hearts and dying leaves, with a loud, "Okay, Byron!" I was mortified. Then he bought me a beer afterward and said, "You were actually kind of amazing. Just, less autumn leaves next time, yeah?" That was Jamie, irritating and honest in a way that stuck. Somehow we clicked. Movie marathons, spontaneous road trips, late-night ramen runs. He was the chaos to my calm, the impulse to my overthinking. Where I hesitated, he leapt. And now he was sleeping on my couch like he'd always belonged here. The first few nights blurred together, him in boxers and a hoodie, me trying not to overthink the casual way he left the bathroom door cracked while brushing his teeth, or how he'd fall asleep with one leg hanging off the couch like it was his bed back in college. On night 4, the complication arrived, subtle, but game-changing. My building's AC died. It was the middle of June, and suddenly my apartment turned into a slow-cooking furnace. We laughed it off at first, sweating through our shirts and pretending cold drinks were enough. By midnight, I caught Jamie sprawled on the living room floor, shirtless, a wet towel draped over his chest like a cartoon character stranded on a desert island. "Kill me," he groaned. "Seriously. Just smother me with your freezer packs and tell my mom I died noble." I laughed, tossing him a popsicle. "You can always sleep in my room. I've got a ceiling fan." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a second, the air changed. "Nah," he said slowly, his voice lower. "Wouldn't want to cross the sacred roommate boundary, right?" I shrugged, forcing a grin. "Yeah. We wouldn't want that." But later, I found him standing in my doorway. "Okay, screw it," he muttered, This is survival, not seduction. He climbed onto the bed, far side, no hesitation. We lay there for a few minutes in awkward silence, both of us facing opposite directions like some invisible line had been drawn down the middle. But even then, I could feel the weight of his presence beside me. The heat of his skin. The rise and fall of his breath. You remember that road trip to Vermont? He said suddenly, voice sleepy. Where we got lost for 4 hours and ended up at that alpaca farm? Yeah. That one. He chuckled. I still swear that alpaca wanted to kill you. It spit at you first, for the record. We both laughed, and something in me unclenched. That was us, bickering like brothers, laughing like lovers, living in the in-between. Then it happened. Just a small thing. His hand brushed mine beneath the sheet. Neither of us moved it away. Not at first. But my heart did a somersault. I should probably sleep on the floor tomorrow, he whispered. Yeah, I whispered back, even softer. Probably. But neither of us meant it. Because in the hush of the fan and the dark of that room, our fingers barely touching, something unspoken settled between us. And it wasn't going anywhere. The next night, a summer storm rolled in. I heard the thunder first, distant, low. Then came the downpour, hard and sudden, like the sky had finally snapped under pressure. Rain hammered the windows, and the wind clawed at the frames like it was trying to get inside. I was in the kitchen, half dressed in shorts and an old tee, rummaging for snacks when Jamie walked in, hair damp, tank top clinging to him like he just stepped out of a music video. I love this weather, he said, barefoot and grinning, shaking out his curls. Everything feels cinematic. I gave him a look. You're dripping on my floor. He wiggled his eyebrows. Romance always starts with a mess. I rolled my eyes, but my heart fluttered like a trapped bird. He didn't even know what he was doing, just being Jamie, loose-limbed and careless with his charm. But it hit me harder every time. The lights flickered once. Then again. I froze. Don't you dare, I whispered to the ceiling. And then they went out. Total darkness. Crap. Jamie burst into laughter. Okay, now it's cinematic. I found the flashlight drawer by memory, tossing him one. Well, Mr. Romance, hope you like candlelight and lukewarm popcorn. We lit 3 tea lights, stuck one in a coffee mug. The apartment looked like a half-hearted seance. He sprawled on the bed like it was his, pulling his legs up to make room for me. This storm's nuts, he said, watching the window flash with lightning. Power's probably out for the whole block. Probably, I muttered, sitting beside him, way too aware of how close his knee was to mine. Guess we're stuck like this for a while, he said softly. My breath caught. He didn't move away. If anything, he shifted slightly, closer. I could feel the heat of his skin radiating in the small space between us. The only sound was rain and the occasional rumble of thunder. We sat in silence, both pretending to focus on the storm. But my mind was screaming. I could feel the tension stretched tight like piano wire, humming between us. Why did he have to be so easy about everything? The way he existed so comfortably in my space, in my bed, in my head. I used to be scared of storms, I said, barely above a whisper. When I was a kid. Jamie glanced at me. Yeah? I'd hide under the blankets and pretend I was in a spaceship. Like the thunder was just engines starting up. He smiled at that. You always had a weird way of surviving things. I shrugged. We all do. He turned then, lying on his side, head propped on one arm. His gaze was soft, searching. You ever still do that? Pretend you're somewhere else? Sometimes, I admitted. But lately it feels like I'm just waiting for something to happen instead. Our eyes met. For a moment I thought he was going to say something, the thing. But instead, he reached over and gently tugged the hem of my t-shirt down where it had written up. Your spaceship's showing, he said, teasing, voice too low, too warm. I laughed nervously, but my skin burned where his fingers brushed me. He left his hand there a second too long. God, I wanted to close the gap. Just lean in and see what would happen. But what if I ruined everything? What if I'm not imagining it? I blurted, the words spilling before I could stop them. He blinked. Imagining what? This, whatever's happening between us. Jamie didn't answer right away. Instead, he rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling like the answer was hidden in the plaster. I don't know what this is, he said slowly. But it's not just nothing. My chest tightened. Sometimes, he continued, I catch you looking at me like you're trying to solve a puzzle. And I don't want to be a puzzle. I swallowed hard. You're not. You're just important. That word hung in the air like a held breath. He turned to me again, closer now. Our legs touched. Neither of us pulled away. You're important too, he said. You always have been. And then, without thinking, he reached over and fixed the collar of my shirt again. His knuckles grazed my throat. I felt my breath hitch. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Or maybe finally admitting he'd always seen me. I wanted to say something. I needed to. But I couldn't find the words. So instead, I stayed frozen beside him, heart hammering, barely breathing, letting that silence stretch between us, thick with everything unsaid. Outside, the storm kept raging. But inside, something quieter, more dangerous was building. And neither of us had any plans to run. The storm passed sometime after midnight, but neither of us moved. The candles had burned low, flickering shadows across the walls. Jamie was still lying beside me, barely an arm's length away. His breathing was steady. His eyes were closed, but I could tell he wasn't asleep. Neither was I. I stared at the ceiling, heart drumming in my chest, replaying every moment of the past week. Every time our hands brushed. Every time our eyes caught and held a beat too long. Every time I wanted to say something and couldn't. And now, we were here. Trapped in this electric silence, both of us pretending not to feel the crackling energy that filled the room like static before a lightning strike. I shifted slightly. Just enough to let my leg touch his. He didn't move. Jamie? I said quietly. His eyes opened. I could see him better now, his face soft in the candlelight, hair falling in loose curls against his cheek. He looked so still, so there, it hurt. Yeah? He replied, voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated. My fingers fidgeted with the edge of the bedsheet. I don't think I can keep pretending. He didn't blink. Didn't move. Pretending what? I swallowed. That I don't feel something different. About you. About us. There it was. Out in the open. The words that had lived in the back of my throat for years. Jamie sat up slightly, resting on one elbow. He looked at me like he was trying to read every line of my face, every flicker of doubt. How long? He asked. I gave a small laugh, dry, nervous. I think I've always felt it. I just didn't know what it was. He didn't speak. And that silence, the one I'd once found comforting, suddenly felt unbearable. I get it if this ruins everything, I said, staring at my hands. I needed you to know. Jamie exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for just as long. It doesn't ruin anything, he said, his voice steady. It scares the hell out of me. But it doesn't ruin anything. I looked up at him. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between fear and something softer. I don't do this, he continued. I mean, I don't know how to do this. Feelings. Real ones. Not the kind you laugh off or turn into a joke. I'm not asking you to know how, I whispered. I'm just asking if you feel it too. Jamie's eyes didn't leave mine. I do, he said, so quietly it barely registered. I feel it when you hand me coffee without asking how I take it. I feel it when I say something dumb, and you look at me like I just solved a puzzle you've been working on for years. My throat tightened. I feel it, he went on, when I walk into this apartment, and it feels more like home than anywhere else I've ever been. There was a beat. Then another. And then he added, almost like a confession. I didn't want to just crash here. I wanted to be near you. My breath caught. He leaned closer. The space between us felt impossibly small now, like the air itself had gone still, waiting. Can I ask something? He said, voice low, hesitant. I nodded. Were you awake that night? On the hammock? My eyes widened. You remember that? Of course I do, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. You were pressed right up against me. I didn't sleep at all. I thought you didn't notice. I noticed everything, he whispered. That was the moment everything shifted. The hesitation fell away. The fear still sat there, humming beneath the surface, but it wasn't enough to stop us anymore. I reached for his hand. He met me halfway. Our fingers laced together like they were made to. Like all those accidental brushes had just been rehearsal for this. Then he leaned in, slow, uncertain, but with a quiet kind of need that mirrored my own. When his lips met mine, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was soft, tentative. A question disguised as a kiss. But I kissed him back. I kissed him like I'd been waiting years to find the right language to say what my heart had known all along. His hand cupped the back of my neck, pulling me in just enough. Mine tangled in the fabric of his shirt, grounding myself in something real. When we pulled apart, we didn't speak for a while. We just sat there, forehead to forehead, sharing the silence we'd always lived in, but this time, it was full of understanding. He let out a quiet laugh. Well, guess you're not sleeping on the floor tonight. Guess not, I said, breathless. He looked at me again, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. Softer. Braver. I don't know what this means yet, he said. But I want to find out. With you. I nodded. Me too. And just like that, the years of almosts and maybe laters faded into something real. No more pretending. No more hiding behind banter or jokes or silence. Just him. Me. And everything ahead of us. The morning after didn't feel like a morning after. There was no awkward tension. No scramble to pretend we hadn't crossed the line. Just a kind of stillness, like the world outside my bedroom had slowed to match the quiet between us. Jamie was still lying beside me, shirtless, one arm behind his head, the other resting across his stomach. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in warm gold streaks, catching in his hair. His eyes were open, watching the ceiling like it held some mystery worth solving. I turned toward him and whispered, So, is this the part where we panic and pretend it didn't happen? He smiled, lazy and soft. Might have missed that window. You kissed me back, remember? I grinned, propping my head on my hand. Technically, you kissed me. Semantics, he muttered, eyes flicking over to mine. You're the one who held on like I was gonna float away. We both laughed quietly, and it settled something inside me. The weight of all that build-up, the doubt, the fear, the endless what-ifs, had lifted. And in its place was this warm, buzzing certainty. We were different now. Not strangers. Not exactly new. But changed. I keep thinking about how long we danced around this, I said after a moment. How close we were to never saying anything. Jamie nodded. Yeah. I was stupid scared. Same. I thought, if I told you, I'd lose you. You almost did, I admitted, my voice lower. Not because of the feelings, but because I was tired of hiding mine. He turned to face me fully then, reaching out to gently tuck a piece of hair behind my ear. Well, he said, you didn't lose me. He let his hand linger against my cheek. I don't want to keep hiding either, he added. The air between us warmed again, but this time without the tension of uncertainty. It felt easy, comfortable, new, but already known. He sat up after a while and stretched, groaning. Okay, confession was great. But my back is killing me from this mattress. Excuse you, I said, tossing a pillow at him. That mattress is a national treasure. National trash, maybe. I laughed and got up to make coffee, and he followed, close behind, too close, brushing my shoulder on purpose like he always used to, only now he wasn't hiding the smile when I looked back at him. We stood at the counter, mugs in hand, leaning against each other without thinking. "I've got a job offer in Portland," he said suddenly, voice quieter. My stomach dropped. "When did that happen?" "A week ago." I didn't say anything because I didn't know what I wanted. Still don't, really. I stared into my coffee, trying to keep my face neutral. "Are you thinking of taking it?" "I was," he said slowly. "But now, I don't know." He turned toward me, his voice steadier. "I don't want this to be a one-night then goodbye kind of thing. Do you?" I shook my head. "God, no." "Then let's figure it out," he said. "Together." I looked up at him. He wasn't giving me promises he couldn't keep. Just a choice. A willingness to try. And that mattered more than anything. "I want that," I said. "Even if it's messy. Even if we don't have all the answers yet." He leaned in and kissed my forehead, gentle, grounding. "We'll get there," he whispered. "You and me." And as the sun climbed higher outside and the coffee grew cold between our hands, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It's strange how quickly the extraordinary can start to feel ordinary. 2 weeks had passed since that stormy night, since the kiss, the confession, the quiet shift that turned everything between Jamie and me into something real. And yet, in the simplest moments, passing each other the remote, folding laundry together, sharing toothpaste, it already felt like we'd been doing this forever. Not because it was easy, but because it felt right. He still left his socks in the living room and still used half my conditioner without shame. But now, he also kissed my temple when I handed him coffee, and he whispered, "I'm glad it's you," when he thought I was asleep. And me? I had started reaching for his hand without thinking. Like I'd done that morning. We were walking back from the corner market, paper bag cradled in my arms, filled with too many snacks and one sad-looking plant he insisted we rescue. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way the sunlight was catching in his hair. But I reached out and took his hand, right there in the middle of the street. Jamie didn't flinch. Didn't look around. He just held on. Like he wasn't afraid anymore. We passed the alley near our old college bar, the one we used to sneak beers behind after open mics. Jamie glanced over and smiled. "Remember the night you read that awful poem about moonlight and heartbreak?" I groaned. "Why do you always bring that up?" "Because it was terrible. But your face afterward, so serious, so crushed, I wanted to kiss you right then." I blinked at him, stunned. "That was 3 years ago." He shrugged. "Yeah, well, I was a coward." I stopped walking. He turned back, confused. "What?" I stared at him for a second, then took the scraggly plant out of the bag and held it up between us. "Here," I said. "This is symbolic now." Jamie raised an eyebrow. "Of what? Our questionable taste in ferns?" "Of starting something messy," I said. "Something that might die if we don't care for it." He looked at the plant. Then at me. Then he grinned. "All right. Let's not kill it. Or each other. Deal." He leaned in, brushing a kiss to the corner of my mouth, nothing urgent, just tender. Real. We kept walking. That night, we repotted the plant in an old coffee tin, stuck it on the windowsill, and named it Second Chance. His idea. Obviously. Later, lying in bed, tangled up in sheets and silence, he rested his head on my chest and murmured, "I don't know where I'm gonna end up next year. Or what job I'll take. But I do know this, wherever I land, I want you to be part of it." I felt the words settle into my chest like roots taking hold. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered. "Not anymore." And when I looked over at our tiny, ugly plant basking in the moonlight, leaves crooked, soil uneven, I thought maybe that's how love starts. Not perfect. But alive. Just like us.